What is up, everybody? My name is Nate, and I am so excited to welcome you to another episode of the Chokehold Hour. During this episode, we're going to be reviewing the absolutely astonishing events that went down at UFC 287 in Miami. So, guys, let's get right into it. We're going to start with the main prelim, Kelvin Gastelum and Chris Curtis. Boy, did this fight deliver, guys. I mean, it was honestly an all-out war, a brawl back and forth between two guys who were in the pocket, consistently willing to be hit in order to land a hit and willing to trade heavy shots in order to get the win. Now, guys, Kelvin Gastelum, I mean, I'm really happy for the guy. He hasn't looked that light on his feet and that quick in a long time. If you watch his fight, his last fight against Robert Whittaker, he really looked just much slower. He looked like a shell of his former self. And in this fight against Chris Curtis, Gastelum was bouncing around on his feet. He was very light on his feet. He seemed very technical in there. He was very consciously aware of what he was doing. And when Chris Curtis was trying to begin those boxing exchanges in close quarters and try to lure Kelvin into brawls, Kelvin stayed technical. He stayed relaxed. He maintained his distance, and he did a good job of getting out of range and out of the way of Chris Curtis shots and landing nicely placed counters, which is really not something we've seen much from Kelvin throughout his career. He's always been a pressure fighter, so to see him adjust with age and fight in a style or in a way that is better suited for him as a male who I guess is kind of out of his prime athletically at this point, it was really impressive to watch. Hats off to Kelvin Gastelum. Now, that being said, guys, I scored that fight 29-28 for Chris Curtis. I know this may be a controversial take, but Chris Curtis was landing shots consistently that whole fight. Yes, I give the first round to Kelvin. I do. I don't think that was really a question in the MMA community at all. Now, that second round, that was outrageous. I think that if you look at the numbers, Chris Curtis and Kelvin Gastelum, they were even in significant strikes. 30-30, dead even. Chris Curtis and Kelvin Gastelum had a clash of heads midway through the round that sent Curtis down to the ground in what looked like a dire situation. He was covering up, not really responding for a good 15 seconds, it might have been. He was really hurt from that headbutt, and I think it took him some time to recover, and Gastelum landed huge heavy shots that would 100% be counted as significant strikes when he maintained that control when Chris Curtis was in a fetal position on his back. So Chris Curtis without that headbutt, I think that the judges definitely give him the second round. Also, the significant strike stats are probably something like 30-20, 30-25 in favor of Chris Curtis rather than 30-30 because Gastelum stole a lot of significant strikes in that exchange on the ground after the headbutt. So do I think the clash of heads significantly altered the fight? Yes, I honestly do. But even with the clash of heads, I give Chris Curtis that second round. He dealt with adversity, got through that adversity, was landing beautiful body shots and nice short hooks to the head, stringing his boxing combos together beautifully. I really think when a guy gets hurt through an inadvertent strike that does not abide by the rules of MMA, and he perseveres through that strike and at least provides an argument for winning that round, I think you have to give him the round just because of the adversity they overcame during the round. Like Chris Curtis, he overcame that headbutt and still made an argument to win that round. So I really think that Chris took that second round. And the third round, I mean, one of the judges scored that fight 30-27. I really don't think you can give that third round to Kelvin Gastelum. I think Chris Curtis was doing a lot more work. He was a lot busier in that third round. He was landing nice boxing combos, just like in the previous round. He was landing huge body shots all fight. Chris Curtis, the body was wide open for him all fight. And I really think he undoubtedly took that third round, so I did not like the 30-27 decision at the end of the fight. But honestly, I wasn't mad about the decision as a whole. I think the fight could have gone 29-28 either way, but I think that clash of heads definitely helped Kelvin a little, hurt Chris, and swayed how the judges viewed that second round and who maintained dominance for longer. So I do think Chris won that fight 29-28, but either way, amazing fight. Hats off to both guys for putting together an absolute 3-round war, a brawl that lasted 15 minutes where neither guy had an inch of breathing room. I mean, that fight was incredible, guys. So hats off to both of them. And now we are going to move to the main card. So, the first fight we are going to go over was the first fight on the main card. Raul Rosas Jr., the failed prospect, loses to Christian Rodriguez. Boy, first I need to apologize to Christian Rodriguez. In my last podcast, I have to be honest. I said that Christian Rodriguez was only on this card, on this main card, as Raul Rosas Jr.'s opponent. And do I stand by that statement? Yes, I do. I don't think he had much of a following leading up to the fight. I don't think many people knew who he was necessarily or knew any sort of hype behind him. Whereas Raul Rosas Jr., he's an 18-year-old competing at the highest level of mixed martial arts. I mean, he was the talk of the card. I mean, he wasn't the talk of the card because you have guys like Jorge and Izzy. But, I mean, there's a lot of buzz. There was a lot of buzz around Raul heading into this fight. And I think Christian Rodriguez stole that buzz. Christian Rodriguez, he performed incredibly. Honestly, it really just looked like a grown man fighting a high schooler in that octagon. I don't think Raul Rosas Jr. is ready for that next level in competition. He's been fighting guys that they're getting dropped from the UFC right after they fight Raul. I mean, Raul Rosas Jr., he looks good in his UFC debut. He has great wrestling. He has a lot of heart, but he is 18 years old at the end of the day. He is still a child. I'm sitting here making this podcast. I'm 19 years old. I'm a freshman in college. I have so much life ahead of me. Raul Rosas Jr. is younger than me. Raul Rosas Jr. voided his senior year in high school to commit his life to MMA. And I mean, hats off to him. He's going to succeed. He's 18. He will be back, guys. He has a lot of skill, a lot of potential. His wrestling, his jiu-jitsu is incredible. He is very good at jiu-jitsu. I just don't think he's grown enough to be taking punches from grown men, from full-sized adult men that have grown man strength. I think Raul should take a break from MMA for a little, maybe just focus on training and honing his skills, getting better, sparring in the gym until eventually he's around 22, 23. He's going to be a fully grown male. He's going to be an adult. Because Raul's not a bad striker, guys. He's not a bad striker, but he doesn't have pop. He has no pop because, again, he's 18. He doesn't have that grown man strength yet. So when he's 22, 23, I'd love to see him fight again then in the UFC so we can see his, because he has the skill. He has all the skills. He has all the tools to be a UFC champion. I still truly believe that. I think he just needs to grow into his body a little, so I'd love to see him at the age of 22 or 23 when he's fully grown into his body, fighting again against higher level guys, because at that point he will be able to physically compete and compare to the guys that he is fighting. Now, again, I just want to say congratulations, Christian Rodriguez. This changes everything for his career. Not only did he just secure a main event win over a fighter with a lot of buzz around him, he beat a legit fighter, Raul Rosas Jr. His jiu-jitsu is hard to deal with. Christian Rodriguez fended off that rear naked choke towards the end of the first round beautifully and absolutely dominated the fight from there. I mean, I was just astonished with his ability to defend Raul Rosas Jr.'s relentless takedown attempts and not only defend them, but reverse position every time. Every time Raul shot, Christian Rodriguez was able to land something of his own, gain good position, land short, precise elbows from top control. He put on a reversal grappling masterclass in that second round. I mean, Raul Rosas Jr. could not find any sort of scramble, takedown, or transition that was working for him. Christian Rodriguez had some sort of reversal on the ground for everything Raul Rosas Jr. did. So, yeah, once again, hats off to Christian Rodriguez. He honestly just looked like a grown man in there against a high schooler. It looked like a predator toying with his prey, and I really didn't like watching Raul Rosas Jr. get thrown around in there like that, especially considering he's 18 years old. He has a brain that he needs to save for the rest of his career. So yeah, I think Raul should maybe take a little break, take a step back from the UFC to train for a little bit and come back and fight when he's a fully grown man. Now, Christian Rodriguez should do the exact opposite. He is in his athletic prime, coming off the biggest win of his career. He should take this hype, run with it, call out a big name, try to get a big-ish fight next, try to break into the rankings, and try to, because he is in his athletic prime. This is the most hype, the most attention he will have in his MMA career, unless he grows himself with big wins from here. He's coming off of a win, off of Raul Rosas Jr., who everybody was focused on because of his age. So that focus naturally drifts to Christian Rodriguez now. Christian Rodriguez has to take that hype and run with it. I think this is his chance to make a name for himself in the UFC, in the mixed martial arts world, and he should take advantage of that opportunity to do so. Next, guys, we are going to be talking about the fight that I said would deliver. The fight that I said could be a fight of the year type candidate. Was I right? I was. Kevin Holland, Santiago Ponzinibbio. That was an incredible fight. Hats off to both guys. They were going back and forth, put on an absolute slugfest for almost 15 minutes until Kevin Holland landed that beautiful right hand. Now, guys, I do want to say, go back to my last podcast, and if you watch that video, what I said about this fight, I said that it was going to be a 3-round war ending in a last-second KO in the 3rd round. I knew these guys were going to go at it. I know Kevin Holland is a good striker. I knew he was better than Santiago coming into this fight. He has the reach. He has the boxing. He's younger. He's fresher. He's faster. He had a lot of advantages. But like I said, Santiago was a dog. He is a dog still. He's older. He's at the latter end of his MMA career, but he can definitely still take a shot, even the hardest shots. And he proved that against Kevin Holland last night, and it went exactly like I thought, guys. Kevin Holland was landing some nice shots throughout the entirety of the fight. He was using his reach and his length to keep Santiago and his attacks at bay. He was kind of in control of the pace and what was happening that fight the whole time. Even though Santiago was never necessarily out of the fight, Kevin was definitely in control, and he got the finish in round 3. That was a beautiful right hand. I know Santiago, he was shaking his head, or he was shaking his finger at the crowd after going no, trying to inquisite that he didn't get knocked out. But Santiago, I mean, I know you're a warrior, but he's going to watch that replay and realize he was out cold. Kevin Holland put him to sleep. When Santiago collapsed face first after that right hand landed, there was no motion. He was lifeless. Holland went to land that ground and pound. He had to hold himself back after that first shot, because if he kept punching anymore, he would have caused some serious damage to the guy. There was no doubt Santiago Ponzinibbio was out cold on the canvas after Kevin Holland landed that right hand in the 3rd round. So hats off to Kevin Holland. That was an incredible performance, incredible strike to finish the fight and encapsulate what was an incredible display of mixed martial arts over almost 15 minutes. Now, I will say, Kevin Holland, he still has a lot to prove. This was a good win for him. This was a big win for him. Kevin Holland has been losing. He's been on a little, he's been kind of fading back a little bit. He was in the limelight. He was a star. He had 5 wins in 1 year. He rose to fame in the UFC, and then he started meeting higher level guys like Derek Brunson, who were just a little too good for him, and he lost a little bit of that hype. He lost a little bit of that buzz, and now in this fight, he got back in the win column, and you could tell Kevin was kind of playing it safe this fight. He wasn't talking as much. That his nickname, Big Mouth, that really didn't come into play as much. I think he was talking minimally in this fight. He was really focused. He was locked in. Kevin wanted to win tonight. He knew that his job might have been on the line. So he locked in, got that victory, and look what happened. He put Santiago to sleep after what was a seemingly pretty dominating performance. So yeah, hats off to Kevin. Really glad he was able to pull it together, get the job done, and kind of throw out his antics, throw them out of the window, and just lock in for this fight, get his career back on track. And now he's got that win. He's got that confidence. He can go back to, doing his thing, talking smack to his opponents in the ring, and just being Kevin Big Mouth Holland. So yeah, hats off to him, and also hats off to Santiago Ponzinibbio. Incredible display of heart. He showed the chin. Like I said, Santiago was not easy to put away. Kevin had to land a multitude of good strikes to do so. So yeah, congrats to Kevin Holland. That was an awesome performance, an awesome fight. 3 rounds of absolute war, and I was right. I knew it was going to be a fight of the year type of fight, and that's exactly what it was. So hats off to both of those guys. Now, next, we will be moving on to the fight that honestly shocked me the most on this card. Rob Font and Adrian Yanez. Boy, is Rob Font back in a big way. I mean, are you kidding me? That was unreal. That KO blew my mind. Adrian Yanez, he's a crisp boxer. To strike in the pocket with that guy and put a guy like Adrian Yanez, who's so technically sound and defensively sound, to sleep like that, that showed skill. That was not a lucky shot. Rob Font landed that shot with skill and precision. That was an incredible punch. Now, I just want to say, I want to go back to my last episode of the Chokehold Hour one more time, because I was talking in my last episode about how there is a chance Rob Font teaches Adrian Yanez a lesson. Now, did I think that... I was on the Adrian Yanez train, and I still am. I think he'll be back in a big way. I think this was just a lesson he needed to learn. But I was definitely on the Adrian Yanez train. Now, I did say in that episode that if Adrian Yanez is too comfortable in there, if he's too relaxed, he starts to land a few shots, he's like, okay, I can handle this guy. If he starts to ease up a little and get too comfortable in that ring, Rob Font was going to show him you can't be comfortable ever in the ring when you're facing a top 5 guy in the bantamweight division, in such a stacked division. And Rob Font showed him that, like I said in that last episode, Rob Font's lost a few times. He's lost to guys like Cheeto, but Rob Font ain't no slouch. He's still a top-level guy. He's a top-level fighter, and he showed that he is a top-level fighter with that mind-boggling knockout. That shot was beautiful. Yanez, when he was sent flying back on the canvas, he was really buzzed from that shot. And then the ground and pound that Rob Font started landing after, I mean, Yanez was in and out of consciousness with each strike that was being landed. His head was being dribbled off the canvas like a basketball. I was absolutely amazed by Rob Font's performance. And yeah, like I said, Rob Font taught him a lesson. Adrian Yanez got too comfortable in the octagon. You can never be too comfortable in the octagon, because when you get too comfortable, that's when you start to get tagged. When you're comfortable, you think, oh, I'm okay. Like, I've got the range. I've managed the distance. I've got this guy's timing down. I'm going to be all right. Then all of a sudden, he switches things up, and boom, Font lands that big right hand, and Yanez is on the canvas saying, what just happened? The difference between the top-level guys and the guys that are towards the 15 spot or just out of the rankings is the ability to adjust on the fly. All of these top-level fighters are good in every facet of mixed martial arts. And even though Adrian Yanez is a boxer, he was supposed to be favored in the striking department in this fight, Rob Font knocked him out because he adjusted to how the fight was playing out, how Adrian Yanez was fighting, and landed that perfect shot. So yeah, I think this was a little rude awakening for Adrian Yanez, but I do think he'll be back. I think he's the best boxer in the bantamweight division, just pure boxing. I don't know if he'll ever be champion because of the depth that division has. I mean, you got guys like Sugar, Piotr Yan, Aljo, Henry Cejudo, it's Cheeto, it's really Corey Sandhagen. I mean, God, this might be the best division in MMA right now. So champ-wise, I don't really know if he'll ever reach that status. But Adrian Yanez will definitely be back, but this was an important lesson for him to learn. There are really talented guys out there that even if you're a little better than them, because I think he's a little more skilled than Rob Font, I still do, they can still knock you out. And that is exactly what happened. So hats off to Rob Font on an incredible performance. Adrian Yanez, it hurt my heart a little to see you get hit like that, but I know you'll be back stronger than ever, so I am not worried at all. Take your time, rest, enjoy time with your family, get back in the gym, and just learn from this mistake, and know that you always have to stay conscious of your opponent, who you're fighting, and the strikes that are coming at you. You can never get too comfortable in that octagon. So yeah, hats off to Rob Font. Adrian Yanez, I know he will be back, but yeah, that was an awesome fight either way. Absolute war for the about 40 seconds to a minute that the fight lasted before Yanez ended up getting knocked out. So yeah, it was a pleasure watching that one. And like I said, guys, I told you that fight was going to be a war. No matter what, it was going to entertain, and that it did. So my pick delivered as per usual. Adrian Yanez and Rob Font delivered as fighters as per usual, and it was absolutely awesome to watch. Now we are moving on. Mr. 305, the hometown hero, the co-main event, Gilbert Burns versus Jorge Masvidal. Guys, Gilbert Burns was just incredible. He just looked too good. Unfortunately, he was just better than Masvidal in every facet of mixed martial arts. He's a better striker at this point in their careers. He has way better cardio. He is more aware. He has better defense. Masvidal looked really lacking on the defensive end in that fight, and Gilbert is a much better grappler. So I really just don't think it's close skill-wise in any facet of the game. I think Gilbert Burns is on another level as a mixed martial artist compared to Jorge. I thought that coming into this fight. I said that in the last episode of the Chokehold Hour, and that proved true in Gilbert's 3-round dominating decision over Jorge Masvidal. Now, I will say Masvidal looked a little better than I expected. I really thought Gilbert was going to be able to run through him like a truck. I thought Gilbert was going to come out there, take him down, and submit him in the first. Masvidal, no matter what, no matter how many times he has been punched, beaten up, he really doesn't get finished. Kamaru knocked him out cold, but that was just a perfectly placed shot. He went 5 rounds with Colby, 3 rounds with Gilbert now. So can Masvidal necessarily hang at the top of the division anymore? No, he can't. But he can survive with these guys. He can step in there, go to war with these guys, take some shots still, and put on a show for the fans. So hats off to you, Mr. 305, Jorge Masvidal, game bred, the man who created the most viral UFC highlight of all time. Congratulations on an incredible career. I hope you enjoy all the fruits of your career and the benefits that you will reap, the money you've made. I hope you can live a good retirement post-fighting life. And yeah, just hats off to Jorge for everything he's done for the sport. I mean, he was really just an icon of MMA, brought a lot of eyes and viewership to the sport. So the UFC would not be where it is today without Jorge Masvidal. He might be the second biggest pioneer in this sport behind Conor McGregor. So congratulations, Jorge Gamebred Masvidal. Now let's get back to Gilbert Burns. Gilbert Burns has never looked better, guys. I think he really is at the peak of his MMA career. He's only getting better. He is just an absolute monster. Now, what I will say about Gilbert, I think it was pretty clear what his game plan is, or was going into that fight. He didn't take too many risks, uncalculated at least. Gilbert was playing it safe. He landed big right hands here and there for sure. But he really was only landing and throwing those big shots when he knew they were going to land, when he knew the opportunity in the window was there to throw those big shots. He took Jorge down a couple of times and really just held him down there for a while. I think Gilbert's been in a lot of wars. He was in a war with Khamzat Chimaev. He took a lot of shots. And, you can't do that in every fight if you want to stay at the highest level and the top of the division for an extended period of time. So Gilbert, he fought smart, much smarter than he has in his previous fights. He didn't take too many unnecessary and uncalculated risks. He played it pretty safe and kind of just cruised his way to a dominant decision win. So congratulations, Gilbert Burns. You looked incredible, good sir, and I really do think that he has done enough for another title shot. I think it's great that he's going to be the backup for Colby and Leon, because I could 100% see Colby pulling out of that fight. You never know what you're getting with Colby Covington. He is an unpredictable guy. That's why he's nicknamed Colby Chaos Covington. He brings the chaos. He brings that unpredictability. He brings that variable, that it factor. You don't really know what's going to happen when Colby Chaos Covington is involved with the situation. So I could totally see him pulling out for who knows what the reason would be, and Gilbert stepping in and getting that title shot. Now, I do think that Gilbert Burns is going to get the next title shot. Even if Colby fights, he will fight the winner of Colby and Leon. That being said, if Bilal Muhammad or Shavkat Rakhmonov, if one of them dominates the other, I think there is a chance that Gilbert will either have to fight the winner of that for the title, or the winner of that might get the title shot before Gilbert, which I don't necessarily think is right. A guy like Bilal, he beat Vicente Luque, he beat Sean Brady. I mean, he's coming, Wonder Boy as well. He's coming off of strong wins. So I think he can make an argument for the title for himself as well. And Shavkat coming off fight of the year against Jeff Neal, where he ended up putting him to sleep with a John Jones-like standing submission that absolutely set the MMA community on fire. So yeah, I mean, it's really an interesting, you got an interesting title picture going on at welterweight right now. So what do I think should happen? I do think that Gilbert should get the next title shot, because Kamaru, he was the champ, he was the guy. Gilbert put up a good fight against Kamaru, even dropped him for a second, but Kamaru knocked him out. That ended that chapter of MMA. But Kamaru's time as champion is now done. Gilbert Burns, I think stylistically, he actually matches up against Leon Edwards much better than he did against Kamaru Usman. Now, I know Leon's already dealt with the grappling. He's seen the grappling from a guy like Kamaru, who's a very good wrestler. But I think Gilbert's style of grappling compared to Kamaru's is very different. Kamaru was a top pressure fighter. Leon was able to deal with Kamaru's pressure. He was able to negate that pressure and escape that pressure and get back to his feet. Gilbert Burns isn't as much of a pressure fighter or like a top control, top pressure type of guy on the ground. He is actively looking for submissions. He is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. He is a multiple-time BJJ World champion, multiple-time BJJ World Champion, and he might be the most decorated Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu artist in the UFC, outside of possibly Charles Oliveira. I really can't name many names that can hold a candle to Gilbert's grappling and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu skill. So yeah, I think Leon is going to have to deal with a different type of grappling and a guy like Gilbert Burns. Now, I do think we've seen Gilbert's chin can be a little suspect, and Leon's got that power and precision. So can Leon put Gilbert out? 100%. I think Leon should and will be the favorite in that fight if they fight and if they match up. But I do think Gilbert Burns does not match up poorly against Leon. I think that makes for a very entertaining and good fight that honestly probably ends in a finish. I would either have to call it Gilbert by submission or Leon by TKO or KO, whichever. So yeah, I really think that could be an incredible title fight. We will see what happens with Shavkat and Bilal. We will see what happens with Colby and Leon. There's a lot that's going on right now in the welterweight division that will impact the implications and future matchups in the welterweight division. So we just kind of have to wait and see right now. Gilbert's going to be the backup for the title fight between Colby and Leon. I think that's an awesome idea again. And yeah, I'm really just excited to see what happens in this welterweight division, who ascends themselves to stardom in absence of the former welterweight, possibly GOAT, Kamaru Usman. And I'm just interested to see what Gilbert Burns is going to do from here. I am interested to see if he will take another fight before the title fight or if he is going to refuse and wait it out and try to get that next title shot against either Colby Covington or Leon Edwards. So that is that for the co-main event. Now we will move on to the main event, the fight that this card was built around, the fourth fight in the quadrilogy of Alex Poatan Pereira and Israel, the last stylebetter Adesanya. Oh my God, guys, that fight was unreal. Can I tell you that when I say I was freaking out when Israel Adesanya landed that right hand and put Alex Pereira to sleep, I was freaking out. I stood up from my seat. My hands were on my head, eyes wide open. My mouth was jaw to the floor in shock. I had no clue what just happened. Hats off to Israel Adesanya. Amazing way to pick himself up after 4 losses. That was really an incredible ending to an incredible chapter in mixed martial arts. Guys, 4 fights, 1 legacy. Those 4 words stand out a lot to me. 4 fights, 1 legacy. Alex Poatan Pereira, a man who broke Israel Adesanya 3 times, was lying there, lifeless, as Izzy sent arrows of revenge, spite, passion, and relief, piercing into a separated from consciousness Alex Poatan Pereira's heart. That was honestly a storybook ending, guys. Israel Adesanya reminded everybody who he is. He is the greatest middleweight of all time. I know Anderson Silva has 10 consecutive title defenses and 12 total title fights, but Israel Adesanya now has 12 total, he has 8 total title wins. He is gaining on Anderson Silva, and while his streak was ended of consecutive title defenses, he came back and knocked Alex Poatan Pereira out in a big way. He left him frozen like Elsa, just as everyone said Alex would leave Izzy. And guys, I really think the stamp that he left on this quadrilogy establishes himself as possibly the greatest middleweight of all time in Ultimate Fighting Championships history. So yes, I do think Israel Adesanya has surpassed Anderson Silva as the middleweight GOAT. But guys, can we talk about the pettiness for a second? Izzy pointing at Alex's son after the fight and falling on the floor, mocking his unconscious father because Alex Pereira's son did the same to Izzy when Alex knocked Izzy out in kickboxing. Can you imagine the pettiness, or not even the pettiness, the relief, the joy that's going through Adesanya's heart and mind as he mocks this kid who he has so long waited. I know the kid's a young kid, so it's a little petty, but Izzy, good for you, man. The amount of stress that must have been building on this man's shoulders, the amount of pressure he was putting on himself during this training camp, the fact that he knew he had to win, or his legacy in the UFC as a top elite guy, one of the best of all time, that was done for. His legacy would have been losing to Alex Pereira 4 times, and he did not let that happen, and it must have felt so good to get Alex's kid back and do that little gesture, just like it was done to him after he got knocked out. While it may have been petty, it must have felt incredible for Israel Adesanya to take that weight, release it from his shoulders, and just embrace all the greatness that is to come after this incredible performance, this encapsulating performance, this dominating performance, this incredible knockout that truly encapsulated the world and every single fan of mixed martial arts. So congratulations to you, Israel Adesanya. I mean, that was... I think I talked about this a little in my last episode. Everybody forgot who Izzy was. And Izzy reminded everyone in this fight that he is a bad MFer. Israel, the last style bender, Adesanya, is not one to be played with, folks. He put Alex Pereira out cold. And he now has a win over every top 5 middleweight. There's no next for this guy. He is the best middleweight in the world right now. Hands down, point blank, period. There is no argument, debate, or discussion. Nobody else in the middleweight division, or possibly even the UFC right now, other than Jon Jones, no other resume compares to the resume that is Israel Adesanya's. I do think that he is not only the middleweight GOAT, but is now, after that performance, possibly the pound-for-pound GOAT in MMA. Because when you think of pound for pound, guys, when you think of pound for pound, you think of strength for every pound. You think the amount of strength someone has for their size. Alex Pereira is a very big man. He's a huge fighter. He weighed 220 on the night of their first fight in the UFC. He was probably at around 215 for this one, maybe even 220 again. And Izzy, a guy who weighed in only at 200.5 pounds for a light heavyweight fight. A guy who is not that big. He's a natural middleweight. He put Alex Pereira to sleep, man. Alex Pereira, he was in a different state. He was in the shadow realm. Israel Adesanya sent Alex to somewhere that is not existing in this realm, in this universe. Alex Pereira was somewhere completely different that Israel Adesanya separated him from consciousness violently. And Israel Adesanya was clearly the smaller man in that octagon. That was just... it was incredible. Israel Adesanya, pound for pound GOAT in my opinion. GOAT of the middleweight division, and really just, that was the cherry on top of his already incredible legacy. It was written in stone. Israel Adesanya was winning that fight no matter what happened. And I think that was a picture-perfect ending to the greatest chapter in mixed martial arts history. Now, what's next? Nothing. Nothing comes to mind. Israel Adesanya, undisputed. He's the GOAT of the middleweight division. He has a win over every guy in the top 5 right now. Who is he going to fight? The only guys that really come to mind here, I think you got Khamzat Chimaev. If he can beat Paulo Costa, get a win over a top middleweight, the UFC loves Khamzat. He's very marketable. He's the villain right now. They are going to fast track him to a title. 100%. If he wins against Paulo, they feed him to Izzy right away. Now, that's an interesting matchup. Who do I think wins? I think overall, as a mixed martial artist, Israel Adesanya is a little too good for Khamzat Chimaev. I do think that if Khamzat can take Izzy down and submit him, or just hold him there, the way Jan Blachowicz did in the 5th round of their title fight, and even the entirety of that title fight, I think Khamzat has a chance at winning. But I think overall, Israel Adesanya is too dangerous. He has too many skills and weapons on the feet. He's too technical. He's too good at maintaining his range, getting out of range and returning with beautifully placed counter punches. I honestly think he's just too good at everything. I think he would beat Khamzat Chimaev by TKO, probably the 2nd or 3rd, maybe 4th round. But yeah, I think his striking is just... Khamzat needs to finish Israel early, because if Israel is given 25 minutes of chances to knock out or to punch Khamzat, one of them is going to land and one of them is going to hurt. So yes, I do think that fight could be made. I think Izzy, once again, he's just too good. I think he wins that fight. Now, an even more interesting fight, possibly. Jan Blachowicz announced on his Instagram he's dropping down to 185. He is no longer a light heavyweight. This is the only other man who holds a win over Israel, the last stylebender, Adesanya in his mixed martial arts career. So this is Izzy's chance to kind of get revenge in the only other flaw on his resume. If he can erase that flaw with a win over Jan, then I don't see why you can't start talking about him as the greatest of all time. Point blank, period. No weight class involved. If he can erase that one little flaw from his record, like he did with Pereira, I might have Israel Adesanya as the greatest fighter of all time, probably still behind Jon Jones. But he's definitely top 3 for me if he's able to erase that stain on his resume. So yeah, that would be awesome if we could see an Israel-Yan rematch. Now, how do I think that fight goes? I think Israel Adesanya picks him apart at middleweight. I think the only reason Yan won that fight was because of the size disparity. I think Israel was just not big enough to be able to defend takedowns and get up. Yan was too strong. He was too physical. Now, with Yan cutting to a totally new weight, getting rid of some of that extra strength, that extra weight, he's definitely gaining speed and skill, but it's not enough to beat Israel Adesanya. Israel Adesanya is the king of the 185-pound division. It is his home, and I do not see any way Jan Blachowicz takes that title from him, especially coming after that incredible knockout of Alex Pereira. Now, guys, I just want to leave you with one last thing. I'm going to bring up my previous episode of the Chokehold Hour one more time, and here's why. If you go back and watch that episode, I said that Israel Adesanya, his only path to victory in this fight, is hurting Alex Pereira like he did at the end of the first round of their first fight and capitalizing when Alex Pereira was hurt. Because Alex Pereira, I said he's just too big. He had too much weight for Izzy to fight 5 rounds with him. Alex Pereira was too strong, too big, and just too powerful, too precise for Izzy to give him 25 minutes of chances to knock him out. I said if Alex gets 5 rounds of chances to knock Izzy out, he's going to do it. But I also did say Izzy can hurt Alex, just like he did in the first fight. Izzy can hurt Alex, and if he hurts him, he must capitalize and finish the fight there. That is his best path to victory. I even said it would have to be early, probably in the second round, and that is exactly what happened, guys. Israel Adesanya by flush knockout in the second round, and it was almost exactly as I said. He landed the same right hand that he did in the first fight, the same exact right hand. It hurt Alex, just like it did in that first fight. But see, this time Izzy had time. He had time to follow it up, and he knew that Alex has good recovery. Once Alex recovers and he's on like go mode, like once you hurt Alex and Alex is on alert because he knows he has to get a finish and win that fight, it's really that's when Izzy starts to get pressured against the fence. That's when Alex just that's when he took over in the first fight. So Izzy did not let that happen. He did exactly what he needed to do and capitalized. I promise you, he trained, he practiced that exact scenario in his gym over and over and over leading up to this fight. There were so many repetitions where Israel lands that one punch. In the gym, he practices. He has Alex hurt, and he just has to throw one more big right hand and a left to finish him and put him away, and that is exactly what he did. Before Alex could even react and bring up his guard, Izzy fired another huge right hand, rendering Alex Pereira unconscious, and the left hook that came after sent him to the shadow realm, and then the huge hammer fist that absolutely demolished Alex Pereira's face sent him to another realm, beyond the shadow realm, beyond human comprehension and existence that only Alex Pereira has ever existed in, because Israel Adesanya sent him there with a perfectly placed shot to the temple. Congratulations, and new, the 185-pound king of the world, the middleweight champion, Israel Adesanya. 4 fights, 1 legacy. People will only remember this knockout. They will not remember the first 3 fights because this knockout sealed the deal on this chapter of MMA. Israel Adesanya, ladies and gentlemen, he does not keep scores. He settles them. And that is exactly what he did at UFC 287. Guys, I just want to thank you so much for watching my UFC 287 recap. I want to remind you that you should go check out the TikTok for highlights of this podcast if you don't have time to watch the whole thing, or if there's some stuff you want to see specifically, head on over to the TikTok at the Chokehold Hour. I'm going to be posting some highlights from this podcast and some other videos and some predictions, some bets that I have, so stay tuned, guys. It was really an honor to make this episode because I actually wrote an article leading up to UFC 287. This fight meant a lot to me. I invested a lot into this fight, honestly. I invested a lot of my emotion into this fight. I felt very spiritually connected with Israel Adesanya. I feel that he is a very spiritual person, and he radiates such positive vibes, positive energy 24/7. And I feel like I feel that energy coming from him, and I just wanted to reciprocate that energy towards him leading up to the fight. And, I just really wanted to see him win. So I have to admit, this was my bias. I wanted Izzy to win that fight. So that was a weight lifted off of my shoulders, and I can't even imagine the weight that was lifted off of his shoulders from winning that fight. So yeah, congratulations, Izzy. Thank you guys so much for watching the Chokehold Hour's third episode. I am your host, Nate, and I am beyond excited for what is to come. I will be making a recap on the Max Holloway and Arnold Allen fight. And then, guys, boy, are we in for a treat. I will be attending the Prudential Center for UFC 288 to see Aljamain Sterling defend the Bantamweight Championship of the World against Triple C Henry Cejudo live in person. I'm going to be there, guys, delivering you with the live updates of the crazy knockouts of the MMA news that you want to see. So get ready to devour some content from the Chokehold Hour. I'm excited to give it to you. Thank you so much for watching today's episode, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Peace.